Hi there, welcome back. Just a fortnight ago, India's leader of opposition, Rahul Gandhi, had ignited a debate on whether India has permanently missed the manufacturing bus to China. This week marked 10 years of the Make in India policy of the Modi government. There was not much fanfare, just a small release and a blog by the Prime Minister. Uncharacteristic of this government, but maybe they are too bogged down with other stuff. Plus, of course, the elections in Haryana and Jammu and Kashmir are occupying the political mindspace. Make in India, nevertheless, is an area of huge national importance. I'm going to focus on that. Also, a provocative thought. Should Quad turn into a military alliance, a NATO of the East? Are we not moving in that direction already? That's going to be our second story this week. Let's get started. It was the first Independence Day speech from the ramparts of the Red Fort in 2014 for Narendra Modi as Prime Minister of India, when he announced with flourish the Make in India campaign, which later evolved into both a philosophy and a policy. The idea was simple. Since India had missed manufacturing bus, first to China in the 1980s and then to the Southeast Asian tiger economies in 1990s, it was time to course correct in mission mode.
मैं आज लाल किले की प्राचीर से विश्व भर में लोगों से कहना चाहता हूं, कम मेक इन इंडिया, आइए हिंदुस्तान में निर्माण कीजिए.
This week marked 10 years of that campaign, not just for the Modi government, but for India as a nation and a society. The government kept the anniversary low-key. Prime Minister himself wrote a blog highlighting some of the achievements. India's defense exports have increased 21 times from about rupees 1,000 crores to rupees 21,000 crores now. The biggest success has been achieved in the mobile handsets manufacturing ecosystem. Almost 100% of mobiles used in India are India-made now. A decade ago, the number was about 10%. Also, while India had just 2 mobile manufacturing units in 2014 when Modi took over, the number stands at a staggering 200, with mobile exports valued at over US $15 billion this year. That's a huge jump. Obviously, all this would not have happened without a focused, decisive push from all arms of the government. A glimpse of the whole-of-government approach was given by India's G20 Sherpa and former CEO Niti Aayog, Amitabh Kant, to your network. Listen to him.
We're in a country where we used to import all smartphones. Today, look at this in a short while. We are now making smartphones. We are the third largest exporter in a very short while. We are touching a value of 15 billion.
This was backed by a personal push from the Prime Minister. I recall in one of his Mann Ki Baat addresses, him pushing the indigenous toy industry, asking people to not buy Chinese toys. Exports of toys, which stood at $100 million, are now over 350 million plus, 3 times more than 2014. Those are encouraging numbers.
मैं अपने स्टार्टअप मित्रों को, हमारे नए उद्यमियों से कहता हूं, टीम अप फॉर टॉयज. आइए मिलकर खिलौने बनाएं. अब सभी के लिए लोकल खिलौनों के लिए वोकल होने का समय है.
But have we succeeded in boarding the missed manufacturing bus? I'm afraid not. That's a lot of reform for tinkering results. Against an ambition of 25% by 2025, manufacturing's share as a percentage of India's GDP hovers in the 15-17 bracket still. For China, that figure is 26%. More importantly, China accounts for 30% of global manufacturing. The number stands at a paltry 3% for India. The gap seems daunting. Only a couple of months ago, India's respected industry veteran N.R. Narayana Murthy of Infosys said as much, highlighting that China is far ahead in the race to be a global manufacturing hub. Let's listen to him.
Chinese are disciplined. They have national pride. They work hard. They don't argue like we do. All of that. So that country has a GDP of 6 times that of India. We were about the same in the middle 70s. So therefore, I think it is too audacious to say we will become manufacturing hub and all of that.
Murthy called it an audacious dream. In a way, nobody can accuse Narendra Modi of not having audacity in his dreams. But despite the Prime Minister's personal push and involvement, Make in India has only managed to give mixed results. Let me give you the right picture of where we stand today and how we go into the future. All major nations that today stand in the developed or advanced or well-off per capita income category, from the United States to the United Kingdom, from Germany to Russia, from China to the tiger economies of Southeast Asia like Vietnam and Malaysia, first transitioned from agrarian societies to industrial ones on the back of manufacturing boom. The first, second, and third industrial revolutions roughly correspond to Europe, America, and East Asia, making that transition respectively. India missed the first and second industrial revolutions because both happened when we were a colonial economy under the British exploitative arrangements. Just one example. The British got railways in England in 1825 and quickly gave it to India in 1837 in the then Madras. But that was for transportation of goods and minerals needed to push industrialization imperatives of Britain, not for India. First passenger train had to wait till 1853. But that's not enough. While the British gave themselves an underground suburban metro train system in 1863 itself, India had to wait till 1984. Yes, good 119 years before then Calcutta, or now Kolkata, got the underground metro services. You see the difference? The goods train was needed to push the colonial exploitative economy. The metro, on the other hand, was for people and hence not a priority. In fact, whatever industries the British left in 1947 in India were essentially a product of industrialization that was needed to assist the war effort during the First and Second World Wars. We missed the third wave of industrialization completely owing to our own follies. We could have done in the 1970s and the 1980s what China did at that time. But then that's where Rahul Gandhi's ancestors come in. Between Nehru and Indira Gandhi, the socialist model, which was neither here nor there, the license permit quota Raj, the controlled povertarian economy, meant that we entered the new millennium as clear laggards. In the same period, China not only aligned its industrial policy, but even its foreign policy to reap maximum benefits. Contrast Deng Xiaoping's famous quote, "I don't care for the color of the cat so long as it catches mice," with the dogmatic hubris of New Delhi elite of that era. And you know why we miss the bus that Rahul Gandhi rues about. Such was the apparent stupidity of those times that in the name of promoting the handlooms sector, for example, controls were put on imports of textiles machinery. Result, Bangladesh raced past us in textiles in the same 2 decades after the 1980s. 2 ironies there. 1, during much of India's post-independence history, economic planning and financial management of the nation's economy was in the hands of leftist Marxist economists of the Delhi school. Yet, when they failed miserably, they coined a term, Hindu rate of growth. Imagine godless communists scapegoating Hindu religion after failing at the wheel. Second, from model of public sector occupying commanding heights of the economy under Nehru to the nationalization of banks and even car making under Indira Gandhi, India missed that agrarian to manufacturing transition only for Rahul Gandhi to now say, oh, China has beaten us. But as wise men say, why cry over spilt milk? Let's focus on the present. Since the mobile phones and hence the electronics equipment sector has become the most visible success story of Make in India, the reality is that it remains low-end manufacturing focused on assembly of components. Some of the drawbacks are being addressed by bringing in components-specific clauses in the PLI scheme by the government. The Modi government has backed its intent with policy, which gets reflected in ease of doing business rankings. From 142 in 2014 to 63 now is a quantum leap. In 2022, the production-linked incentives scheme was launched to bridge the cost gap that industries faced between established manufacturing hubs like Vietnam or China and India. Listen into Kant again.
The patent registration, that is innovation in India, was taking a lot of time. It used to take 7 years, 8 years. We came out with a national intellectual property right policy in 2016. We overhauled the IPR regime. The technical manpower in the patent office was increased 4 times. The average time taken for examination of a patent application was reduced from an average of 72 months to just 5 to 10 months. That has been the reduction, from 72 months to just 5 to 10 months. And the patent office has granted over 100,000 patents in financial year 24.
There is a lot more that can be done. I would highlight a couple of my own observations for which I have spoken to at least half a dozen industry representatives. One, and perhaps the most important, there is an impedance between the Prime Minister's vision and his bureaucracy implementing it. I'm not saying resistance, which obstructs, but a typical bureaucratic response which adds layers of caution, thus slowing down results. Case in point, slow takeoff for the electric vehicles ecosystem. Industry bodies frequently complain of red tape despite clear vision at the top. 2, there is still recurrent policy confusion. Case in point, the lingering renegotiation of free trade agreements. FTAs were meant to free up trade, but Make in India requires spokes to be put to disincentivize imports. This has led to the entry of non-tariff barriers, adding to the confusion. The FTA talks need quicker resolution. Another policy quagmire is the GST law. Despite dividends on the tax side of the biggest Modi government reform, not just for the center, but even for the states. In its present form, it leaves a lot of discretion and hence scope for bureaucratic meddling at the lower levels of industry-government interface. Fourth, Prime Minister's team perhaps needs to have a hard look at the Skill India mission and whether the Skills Ministry is in right alignment with the objectives and targets. China origin COVID was a once-in-a-century pandemic that left millions of lives and families in shambles. But the geopolitical and geoeconomic shifts it engendered place India in an advantageous situation. Having seen the kind of irresponsibility with which the communist state of China conducted itself, the world is realigning its global supply chains. India is emerging as an alternative supply source given its raw materials, low labor costs, and growing manufacturing base. Above all this, India, with its conduct during COVID, showed to the world that we are a friend nation, a Vishwamitra. We align ourselves with the greater common good and not narrow economic agendas. China had 4 decades of a free run with the West, indulging with the communist regime. From the time of Nixon, when the DC establishment thought they had made their smartest move by taking away China from Russia, to Clinton championing China's entry into the World Trade Organization, to Obama's Pacific Free Trade, to a 180-degree turn with Trump blaming China for USA's deindustrialization. The wheel, in a way, has come full circle. Just a fortnight back, the United States Congress passed 25 legislations that put spokes in China's capacity to trade globally, particularly with America. Europe is building a great tariff wall against Chinese imports. The European Union imposed 50% import duties on Chinese electric cars recently. India has to take full advantage of this changed geopolitical reality. A window has emerged, howsoever narrow, perhaps a decade, in which we must forget hubris and remember what Deng said. Do not bother about the color of the car so long as it catches mice. As per World Bank data, when you take world as a whole, the share of manufacturing as a percentage of global GDP has been consistently declining, from a peak of about 20% at the turn of the century to about 15% now. This seems in line with the general economic trend, according to which, with progress comes a shift in economic activity from agriculture to manufacturing to services. We are already in Industrial Revolution 4.2, and let's not miss the ship. Moving on.